Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something pretty interesting, the B1 Mamba Electric Skateboard.
Right. We got a tip from a listener about a review from the Skates Electricos podcast over on YouTube.
Yeah, and this board, it looks like it's got a few quirks, some interesting things going on. It's a Spanish language video originally, right?
That's right. Featuring Facundo Carmona and another guy, Aiden. Both sound like they know their stuff when it comes to e-skates.
Okay.
And they've actually ridden this B1 Mamba. It's sort of pitched as a budget board, but with a twist.
So our mission here is basically to unpack all that. You know, what's good, what's maybe not so good, what are the key takeaways for you?
Exactly. Is it actually worth considering?
All right, let's get into it. So the price point, we're talking around, what, 550 to 590?
Yeah, sort of entry-level street board territory. But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
It comes standard with all-terrain wheels.
Which is pretty unusual for that kind of board and price, isn't it?
Totally. And they're not just any AT wheels. They're J wheels, 150 millimeters.
Yeah.
Big ones.
Okay. So for anyone maybe new to this, AT wheels, they're bigger, softer, give you more grip off-road.
Exactly. Better on rougher surfaces, not just perfect pavement. And the reviewers pointed out, just buying an AT wheel kit on its own, that could set you back nearly €200.
Wow. Okay. So having them included that's a big deal value-wise.
Right out of the gate, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of lowers the barrier if you want to try riding on, more than just smooth tarmac, which is maybe a big plus for new riders.
It definitely changes things. And the reviewers, they kept mentioning how weird it is, like seeing a street deck with those big wheels.
Well, yeah, because normally street boards have narrower trucks, maybe 7 inches or so. And if you just slap big AT wheels on those, you get a serious wheel bite. The wheel hits the deck when you turn. Not good.
So how does the Mamba get around that?
Wider trucks. That's the key insight from the transcript. They're 7.8 inches.
Okay. Just that little bit extra width.
Seems like it's enough. Gives you the clearance for the big wheels. But, and this is clever, it's apparently still fine if you want to swap back to regular street wheels later.
Okay, so it's got this sort of built-in versatility from the start. Interesting. How does it actually feel to ride, though? They talked a lot about flex, right?
Oh, yeah. They said it was like incredibly flexible, maybe the most flexible street board they'd ridden.
Really?
And it has this 3mm foam grip tape, too, which they thought added to the comfort.
Okay.
One of them said his first impression was just that it eats everything, like bumps and rough stuff. Felt like floating.
Floating, huh? That sounds pretty smooth.
Yeah, he even said it kind of makes you want to bounce on it because it's so soft.
So it smooths out the ride. Did they try it with street wheels, too?
They did, yeah. Mentioned tarmacs and Madwell specifically.
Yeah.
Said it worked great as a street setup, too.
So that flexibility isn't just for the AT setup. It works across the board, so to speak.
Seems like it. Like it's designed to kind of bridge those worlds.
Okay. What about, like, the practical stuff? Lights? Any weird little things they found?
Right. So it comes with lights, front and rear. They're on these 3-centimeter risers. But one of the reviewers took them off. Maybe wanted it lower.
And ran into trouble.
Yeah, apparently the screw for the light was way too long. So when he took the riser off, the screw got stuck, and he was worried it might even hit the motor.
Oh, okay. Not ideal. Maybe a sign of cutting corners slightly.
Could be. Just one of those little details,
Yeah. Anything else on the practical side?
Well, the rider who was lighter actually liked the narrower deck. Said it made turning easier, more control for him.
Right, so deck width can be personal preference.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And they noted the motors are inverted. One guy rode it down a pretty high curb, actually.
Oh, yeah. How'd that go?
He said it handled it really well. Felt like the deck's flex just soaked up the impact.
Suggests it's maybe tougher than the price might suggest.
Possibly, yeah. A bit resilient.
Okay, let's talk power. Speed. Always important.
Right, so 3 standard modes. Tops out at 15, 25, and 35 kilometers per hour.
Standard stuff.
But
yeah,
there's apparently a hidden turbo mode.
Ooh, really? How fast?
Up to 47 kilometers, they said. You had to press the power button 3 times to get it.
A secret boost. Did they use it much?
They initially thought it was reverse, actually. But yeah, it's a turbo mode.
So overall power-wise, compared to other boards?
They did say it's maybe not as punchy as something like the WOG Pioneer X4.
Which is a pricier board, right?
Yeah, but they felt the power on the Mamba was, perfectly fine for general riding, cruising around 25, 30 kilometer.
So adequate for most people, maybe not for speed demons.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a decent balance, especially with that turbo option if you need a bit more juice occasionally.
Okay. Now, Manufacturing quality control. Sounds like this is where things get a bit more critical.
A little bit, yeah. So right out of the box, one of them noticed a wheel wasn't touching the ground.
Oh, like a wobble. What caused it?
A bent base plate on one of the trucks. Which, yeah, isn't great on a brand new board.
No, definitely not. Was it just a one-off, do they think?
They didn't really say if it was common, but yeah, finding a bent part isn't ideal.
How did the company handle it?
Actually, pretty well, according to the review. B1 customer service sent a replacement base plate super quickly, like by air. Arrived in 5 days.
Okay, that's good service. Did that fix the wobble?
Mostly, but not completely. The same wheel was still slightly off the ground.
So maybe something else. The other truck. The deck.
They speculated it could be the other truck, or maybe even a tiny warp in the deck itself. But crucially, they said it didn't actually affect the ride feel.
Interesting. So a minor imperfection you can see but not feel.
Seems that way. But it does maybe point to some, looser tolerances in manufacturing.
And they mentioned pivot cups, too. What are those exactly?
There's small plastic or urethane cups inside the truck hanger pivot point. They let the truck pivot smoothly for turning. Super important for feel.
Right. And the Mambas.
Described as very poor quality. Just basic plastic.
Ah. So that's maybe one area where they saved costs to include the AT wheels.
That was the reviewer's guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Got to make compromises somewhere at this price point, I suppose.
Makes sense. What else on the quality front? Any other noises or issues?
Yeah, there was this persistent rubbing noise coming from one of the motor wheels.
Just one.
Just one. And it happened no matter which wheel, belt, or pulley they put on that side.
Weird. Did they figure out what it was?
Not definitively. They thought maybe a bearing or something internal like the motor pinion, but it remained a bit of a mystery.
Did it stop them riding it?
No, they were clear about that. It was annoying, maybe, but didn't actually prevent riding.
Okay. And anything else? Loose parts?
They mentioned the enclosures felt a bit loose on unboxing, and also that adjusting things near the motors was tricky because the motors are really close to the pulley bearings.
So maybe not the easiest board to tinker with in some areas.
Potentially, yeah. It sounds like there are definitely some fit and finish things that aren't perfect.
Which I guess leads back to that trade-off idea. You get the AT wheels, the flex.
But maybe some compromises on component quality and overall refinement. Pretty common and budget-friendly stuff.
So what about long-term? Did they talk about reliability?
They did, and they brought up an interesting comparison.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned that WOG Pioneer X4 again, which, the X5 version's around €1,200. Much more expensive.
Right.
And one of the speakers actually had a motor completely fail on his Pioneer X4 after only 550 kilometers.
Wow. Okay. So even expensive boards aren't immune to problems.
Exactly. It kind of puts the Mamba's little quirks into perspective, doesn't it? Paying more doesn't always guarantee zero issues.
That's a really good point. Now, this was maybe the most surprising part for me. One reviewer actually sold his Pioneer X4 to get the B1 Mamba.
Yep. Sold the expensive board for this one.
And would he do it again? Did he regret it?
Nope. Said he'd absolutely do it again.
Really? Why? Given the issues they found.
He loved the Mamba's comfort, the agility. Called it rat-like maneuverability, which sounds kind of fun.
Okay.
Said the controller felt good. And honestly, hitting super high speeds just wasn't his main priority anyway.
So for his riding style, the Mamba just clicked.
It really seems like it. That's a pretty strong endorsement, considering he came from a much pricier board.
Okay.
Suggests the Mamba's strengths really resonated with him.
Okay. So let's talk about those strengths a bit more. Modding potential. Value.
Right. They acknowledge the 7.8-inch trucks might be a bit narrow for someone doing really serious, dedicated off-roading. But they pointed out, hey, you could upgrade. Slap on some wider backfire trucks, maybe cost you €80, €90. There's an upgrade path.
So it's not like you're stuck. And because the board itself is cheaper.
Exactly. It feels less painful, maybe, to spend a bit extra on upgrades over time. Better bearings, those wider trucks if you want them. You're not already deep into the $1,000+ investment.
So it's a good base for tinkering.
They seem to think so. Good platform for experimenting. Try different wheels, different pulleys. They even suggested getting cheap 7-inch trucks for like €50 to make it a pure street machine.
So lots of options. And the overall value.
They felt that for under €600, getting a board that can handle both AT and street, plus that comfort and flex, it's pretty significant value, especially with the AT wheels included.
Okay, let's just quickly recap the main pros and cons they pulled out. Pros first.
Affordable price, obviously. Included AT wheels, big one. Comfortable, flexible deck, good for both AT and street. Agile handling, decent lights included, and metal anti-sink plates. which is a nice touch.
Gotcha. And the downsides, the cons.
Questionable pivot cup quality, that plastic thing. Potential for those slight alignment issues, like the wheel wobble, that unexplained rubbing noise in the motor. Maybe less powerful than some high-end boards, and those loose enclosures they saw at the start.
Okay, covers the main points. And they mentioned a community, too.
Yeah, their podcast, Skates Electrico's podcast, has a Telegram community. Sounds like a good place to chat more, ask questions if you're interested in this board, or e-skating generally.
Always good to have a community resource.
Definitely.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up our deep dive on the B1 Mamba.
Yeah, so summing it up, it's a really interesting proposition, isn't it? A budget-friendly way in, but with this kind of surprising AT versatility baked into a street-style board.
Right. And yeah, there are clearly some signs of cost cutting, the pivot cups, those minor manufacturing things they notice.
Huh.
But the overall ride, that flex, the value you get for the money, especially getting those AT wheels included, it seems like it could be a really compelling package for certain riders.
Definitely seems to hit a sweet spot for some people based on that review.
So it kind of leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener.
If a board at this lower price point can offer this kind of versatility right out of the box, what does that mean for electric skateboards going forward?
Yeah, like will we see more manufacturers trying this hybrid approach, mixing street decks with AT capability?
And what sort of compromises might become standard at different price points as they try to make boards more adaptable for everyone? It's definitely something interesting to think about as this whole space keeps evolving.